Oh, hey, Brandon Hetzler, still with Movement Restoration. Let me get rid of my light reading here. Caught me in the middle of that. Still in Southwest Missouri, still filming from the same classroom I've been in most of the morning. Now what we're going to get into is talking about how we address shoulder mobility, how we clean it up and how we correct it. If you don't know what SM means, it stands for shoulder mobility. If you don't know what that is, it's from FMS. If you want to know more about FMS and their approach to movement assessment, go to functionalmovement.com, and there's tons of resources there to get that. Today we're not going to get into the why behind all of this. We're just going to get into the exercises, the interventions that we currently use, and we're going to address the how-to. This is just a starting point. It's not the recipe or the only way to go about addressing this. This is just how we're currently doing it. If you've been to one of our workshops and seen this before, wonderful. Chances are you haven't, because these have changed. Come to a workshop in the next couple weeks, next couple months, next couple years, probably a whole different list of exercises, because the exercise isn't the important part. The intervention is the least important part of the whole corrective exercise approach. And why I say that is we need to understand what the outcomes are from the interventions that we're applying so that we can know what we need to get out of our interventions. If I need to get something very specific out of an intervention, I can then pull 100 different interventions in to get the right one for the right person at the right time. So exercise, least important. Understanding the why, most important. We're not covering the why today. Sorry, you got to come to one of our workshops or find me and talk to me in person. Either way, we'll make it work. First one we're going to do is our doorway bully drill. I don't have a doorway. So what you're going to do, you're going to take your arm, you're going to put it palm out here. You're then going to find a doorway, and I'll pretend this wall is a doorway. You're going to put elbow, medial epicondyle, up on that doorway, keep that shoulder down, and then you're going to turn into it. We're going to get a little bit of opening up of that shoulder. We're going to call it a stretch, whatever you want. We need to be able to breathe with this. We just need to create and open things up just a little bit with this. There are 1,000 shoulder drills that you can do to work on mobility of the shoulder. This is just a simple one that we can do at home to kind of create some space in there. You notice it's got the 2 asterisks. You got somebody that has a hypermobile shoulder, probably don't need to do this with them. Next one we're going to do is the prone pushback. If you've been listening to me in some of the previous videos I've shot earlier today, yeah, I'm shooting them all in one day, you probably recognize that one. If you haven't, you don't. So I'm going to talk to you because you don't know what I'm talking about just because you haven't seen the other videos. If you have watched one of the earlier videos, you know what that is, take the next couple minutes, grab a drink, work on your riding skills, see what's going on outside the window or around you. So prone pushback. Palms are going to be flat. Forearms are going to be flat. Hands are underneath our shoulders, about shoulder width. Shoulders aren't dumped up forward. Prone is where we establish scapular stability, so we want to make sure we're playing into that. Feet are about hip to shoulder width, no wider, no narrower. Toes are pulled up, knees are up off the ground. What we're going to do if we were on ice or a slippery surface and not this super clean carpet that Tanya swept for me beforehand, thank you. What would happen with this movement is our arms would do this. Carpet, I've got traction, so that can't happen. So when I push my hands this way, I actually move backwards into that dorsiflexion that I have. When I do that, things turn on. Highly technical term, exactly what's happening, things in this area between here and here activate. If you can't get that activation or the person you're working with can't feel that, that's fine. We've got a workaround. Bring them back, feet up on the wall. Same position, same thing. Push this way, you move backwards. That pushing into the ground to activate or taking advantage of our ground reaction forces. We're going to push back, not let our shoulders dump up into a bad position, but we're going to push back, and again, we're going to feel stuff in here turn on. That's what we're wanting. Correcting the shoulder mobility drill, or correcting the shoulder mobility from the FMS, really has very little to do with shoulder mobility. It all has to do with proximal stability for distal mobility. We're expressing reciprocal patterns of the shoulder, and if this isn't going and this isn't working the way that it's supposed to, this doesn't happen. So what we're looking at with our prone pushback is getting this to turn on and activate. The prone S push-pull. If you watched some of the videos earlier, Push-pull series, you probably already know I stole that from Jeff O'Connor. If you don't know the jokes I've been making about that, go watch one of the other videos. They're not that funny. But with this, what we're going to do, we're going to go through the same push-pull series that we have before. It's no different. But the prone S part, what we're going to do is we're going to take this arm. We're going to put it in our lumbar spine. We're going to keep our shoulder up off the ground so we're not all collapsed down. We're keeping our shoulder up off the ground, and we're going to push out, and we're going to pull back in. And we're just going to work through that. We can even bring the bell out here, switch, and pull in and push out. We have many options. When Jeff originally showed this one to me, this was also a drill that made me cry, because at this point, see my hand, watch what's going on down here, lift that hand an inch up off the back, pull it in, push it out, and switch. Notice, it's like a Johnson & Johnson commercial. No more tears. I've gotten a little bit better at it. But again, what we're looking for, proximal stability, distal mobility, in the presence of reciprocal actions of the upper extremity. Prone to quadruped. This is thrice now we've gone over this one. Unless this is your first time, it's the first time, so I'm going to teach it like you've never seen it before. So prone to quadruped, we're going to start in prone. We're going to start in that exact same position that we did our prone pushback, only now we're going to have our feet a little bit wider. Feet dorsiflexed. We're going to push our hands forward. Since it's not on ice or a slick surface, we're actually going to push back into our heels. We're going to unlock our hips. We're going to let the shoulders come back, and then we're going to shift up into quadruped. And again, why we're doing this is we need to be able to express shoulder motions in the presence of a stable spine. Now, once we get up to quadruped, there's several things that we can get into and do. That whole push-pull series, again, we've talked about that one before, where we're here, we're now having to express scapular stability, distal mobility in the presence of a neutral spine. This one's a little bit harder to get a reciprocal pattern in, because as soon as I push here and unload here, bad things happen. But we can start to get the same thing. And what we're looking for is to get that activation to stabilize midline, work on some good scapular control so that that glenohumeral joint is aligned and oriented in as good of position, as best position that it can, so that it can then express its mobility. One unique component about the shoulder mobility drill, because most of the time, just walked in front of the screen, that's a faux pas. Sorry, but it's a free video. Get over it. Shoulder mobility, we tend to spend a lot of our time in this seated position, whether we're sitting here watching an amazing video on YouTube, or whether we're sitting in a lecture or a workshop, or sitting in our car, or sitting with, almost bit it right there, that would have been a great one for you guys, sitting with our technology. What happens is, because we spend so much time in a bad sitting posture, we tend to see habits develop, because the human body is so adaptable that we're going to adapt the postures that we spend the most time in. Great book out there by Kelly Starrett. I'm drawing a blank on what the title is, but just go to Amazon, look for Kelly Starrett. Black book with a skeleton design on the front of a guy sitting at the desk. I don't remember what it's called for the life of me right now. It's a really good book. But he goes into a lot of great detail about how sitting causes lots of negative issues from both a educational standpoint and from a movement standpoint. Recommend getting the book, reading through it. It'll get into what happens because of this adapted posture we get into. Still wish I could think of the name of that book, but Kelly Starrett, Amazon, read the book if you want to, gets into all of that. So because of that though, back to my point, because of this, we might have to do a little bit of soft tissue work. We might have addressed tissue quality to open up that anterior side so that we can then take advantage of some good scapular position. So hope you enjoyed. See you next time.